This channel talks about movies in slow, clear English to help you practice your English listening comprehension. Critics gave this movie one of the lowest scores of the year. Audiences gave it one of the biggest box offices of the year. How can both of those things be true at once? Let's talk about the Super Mario Galaxy movie. Let's start with the story. The film begins with a birthday party for Princess Peach in the Mushroom Kingdom, surrounded by familiar faces like Luigi and Toad. It doesn't stay happy for long. Bowser Jr. has a dangerous plan of his own. And because of it, Rosalina, the guardian of the stars, ends up in serious trouble. To save her, Mario and his friends leave home behind and travel out into space, moving from galaxy to galaxy along the way. Almost every planet they visit brings a new kind of danger. Almost is a quantifier we use before words like every or all to mean nearly all of something, but not quite 100%. One world flips the group upside down with strange, shifting gravity. Another is made almost entirely of floating islands that crumble beneath their feet as they run. A third is home to a creature so enormous that the group looks like ants standing beside it. This is a big change from the first film in this series, which mostly stayed inside one familiar kingdom, with only occasional trips beyond it. Here, nearly every scene introduces a brand new location, full of strange gravity, floating islands, and entirely new galaxies to explore, each with its own color palette and its own rules. Along the way, the returning characters are given a little more to do than simply following Mario. Luigi gets his own frightened, reluctant hero moments. Toad provides most of the comic relief. And Yoshi, new to this installment, adds a playful, childlike energy to scenes that might otherwise feel tense. Several of the film's biggest action sequences take place in zero gravity, with characters and enemies alike floating freely across the screen. Several is a quantifier, meaning more than 2 or 3, but still a limited, countable number. Useful for describing a handful of standout scenes without needing an exact count. Bowser Jr. himself gets a little more depth than the average cartoon villain too. Rather than simply wanting to cause chaos, his plan is framed as an attempt to prove himself to his father, Bowser, which gives at least a few of his scenes some unexpected emotional weight for a film this colorful and fast-paced. Now, let's talk about how this story is told and why people reacted to it so differently. almost everyone agrees on one thing. This film looks incredible. Both critics and audiences say the animation is bright, detailed, and full of imagination, especially in the space and galaxy scenes. Almost everyone is a quantifier phrase, meaning nearly all people, even if a small few might disagree. When it comes to the story itself, though, opinions split hard. Many critics felt the plot was thin, and that the film leaned on fast pacing and jokes instead of a strong, well-built story, with new galaxies introduced faster than the film can properly explore any single one of them. Many is a quantifier we use for a large but not exact number of people or things. Audiences, on the other hand, mostly disagreed with that verdict. A large majority of the people who filled out exit poll cards gave the film a top grade, describing it as fun, fast-moving, and full of surprises for both children and adults in the cinema. A majority means more than half of a group, and in this case, it was a very large majority indeed. This kind of gap between critics and audiences isn't unusual for a big family film, but the size of the gap here is unusual. Some critics say this film is simply better to watch than to think about. Its energy and imagination work well for its intended young audience, even if the plot doesn't hold up so well under closer inspection. By the end of the film, Mario and his friends must find a way to stop Bowser Jr.'s plan and save Rosalina, while introducing audiences to a whole new part of this universe that could easily return in a future film. The final confrontation deliberately leaves the door open for at least one more installment, something the studio has been openly hinting at since before the film even opened. Alongside our quantifiers, this episode also has 5 vocabulary words for you, pulled from the film's own galaxy setting and from how people have actually described it. Our first word is galactic. Galactic means relating to a galaxy, or simply enormous in scale. This film sends its characters on a genuinely galactic adventure, far bigger in scope than the first movie's single, familiar kingdom. Our second word is imaginative. Imaginative describes something full of creative, original ideas. Even critics who disliked the story still called the film's world building wildly imaginative, praising the sheer variety of planets and settings on screen. Our third word is sequel. A sequel is a film that continues the story of an earlier one. This film is a sequel to the first Mario movie, and it deliberately expands the universe outward rather than simply repeating the same kingdom and characters. Our fourth word is milestone. A milestone is an important point marking progress or achievement. Crossing $1 billion worldwide is a major financial milestone, and this film reached it faster than any other release this year. Our fifth and final word is split. A split is a division into two clearly different groups or opinions. The gap between this film's critic score and its audience score is one of the clearest splits of the entire year, and it's a big part of why people are still discussing it online. Now, let's look more closely at what critics and audiences actually said. On the critics' side, the reaction was unusually harsh for such a popular series. The film's score on a major review aggregator site dropped sharply from the first movie, landing in the low 40s out of 100. One of the weaker scores the studio has received in years. Several reviews specifically criticized the pacing, arguing that the film introduces new worlds so quickly that none of them feel fully explored before the story moves on to the next one. Only a small number of reviews were genuinely positive about the story itself, even among critics who praised almost everything else about the film. A small number of is another quantifier phrase, used here for a limited, countable group of reviews, rather than a large one. Despite those reviews, audiences reacted very differently. Exit poll surveys gave the film a grade close to the very top of the scale, and a separate audience poll found that almost 90% of viewers had a positive experience. Almost 90% is a precise way of using a quantifier alongside an exact number. Hardly any major critics gave the film a strongly positive review, yet hardly any audience members walked away unhappy either. Hardly any is a quantifier meaning almost none, and it's genuinely interesting that both extremes appear in the same story about the same film. So why the gap? A few reasons come up again and again in online discussions. Families, and especially children, tend to love color, movement, humor, and familiar characters. Exactly what this film offers in large amounts. Critics, however, often judge films on story structure and originality, areas where this film was seen as weaker than the imaginative world it's set inside. Commercially, none of that critical disagreement seemed to matter much. A lot of box office records fell in this film's opening weekend alone, and it became the first release of the year to cross $1 billion worldwide, doing so faster than any other film in 2026. A lot of is a quantifier used for a large, often uncounted, amount. Online, discussion of the film keeps circling back to the same question. Does a critic's opinion even matter when a film performs this well with the audience it was actually made for? Plenty of commenters have pointed out that most of the people buying tickets are children and families, not film critics, and that the film was never really trying to impress the second group in the first place. Comparisons to the first film come up constantly too. That earlier movie scored much higher with critics, but this new one has already earned considerably more at the box office, which has led to plenty of debate about whether critical scores actually predict box office success at all, at least for films aimed squarely at families. This film is a good reminder that a critic's score and an audience's enjoyment don't always match, and that both reactions can be true at the same time, even though they seem to completely disagree with each other. Let's go through the quantifiers from this episode to help you improve your English. Almost. Used before words like every or all, to mean nearly all of something, but not 100%. Almost every planet was dangerous. Many. Used for a large but not exact number. Many critics disliked the story. A majority, meaning more than half of a group. A large majority of audiences loved it. Hardly any, meaning almost none. Hardly any critics gave it a glowing review. A lot of. Used for a large, often uncounted amount. A lot of box office records fell that weekend. Try describing something you've watched recently using one of these quantifiers, instead of just saying some people or a bit. Let's also go through our 5 vocabulary words from this episode to help you improve your English. Galactic. Relating to a galaxy, or simply enormous in scale. The special effects made the final battle feel truly galactic. Imaginative. Full of creative, original ideas. Critics called this film's world building wildly imaginative, even when they disliked the story. Sequel. A film that continues the story of an earlier one. This film is a sequel that expands the universe rather than repeating it. Milestone. An important point marking progress or achievement. $1 billion worldwide is a huge financial milestone. Split. A division into 2 clearly different groups or opinions. There's a clear split between what critics think and what audiences think. Try using one of these 5 words yourself, either to describe this film or another story with a big, imaginative world. So, what's the final verdict on the Super Mario Galaxy movie? If you're watching with children, or you simply want something colorful, energetic, and fun, audiences say this film gives you exactly that. If you want a tightly written, original story, many critics say you might come away disappointed. Really, this is a film where the right question isn't, is it good? It's, good for who? And for its intended audience, the box office numbers suggest the answer is a clear one. A film doesn't need to satisfy every single critic to be considered a genuine success. And this one is proof of that. Did you enjoy the Super Mario Galaxy movie? Let me know in the comments on the video, or get in touch. If this helped you improve your English today, subscribe on YouTube, or follow along on Spotify or Apple Podcasts for more movies reviewed in slow, clear English. Interactive learning materials for this lesson can be found for free on engmoviereviews.com.